Hey, everyone. How are you?
From Jamaica.
Yes, from Jamaica to Maine. In one day. Good afternoon. Ronald Reagan once said, Republicans believe that every day is the 4th of July, but Democrats believe every day is April 15th. Today is April 15th. And it is the day for the Democrats. But I want to be very clear. Today for me is the day where Mainers can prosper and job creators can become competitive here in Maine. And make no mistake about it, my budget fully intends to eliminate the income tax by the time we leave here. If it's not eliminated on the last day, it will have a date specific that we want to eliminate the income tax in the state of Maine. And the very simple reason is this. If you look at states that don't have income tax, they're very prosperous. And I think that we deserve to have prosperity. Unlike my opponents, their plan, which they call a better deal. You know, I've heard of New Deal, a better deal, I've heard all the good deals. But let me tell you what I read this morning, and I haven't totally evaluated it. But what I see in here is a poor deal. A poor deal for Mainers. This plan wants to keep Maine poor. They have been taxing us to death, and they want to continue. They increase taxes by $100 million. They do absolutely nothing in their program to help the small businesses in Maine, which is the backbone of our society here in Maine. It discourages large job creators to come to Maine. As a matter of fact, this plan doesn't even give them the opportunity to even look at Maine. With this plan, I would totally ignore Maine. You know, liberals like Speaker Eves, Senator Alfond, Jeff McCabe, Sarah Gideon, Don Hill. It saddens me to think that they want to keep Mainers as poor as they have been. And they're in the leadership in this government. The Taxation Committee. These people, I got to give them a break. Adam Good, Nathan Libby, Steve Stanley, Matt Moonen, Diane Russell, Denise Tepler. I give them a break because I'm sure they have never studied economics. They simply don't get it. Believe it or not, they actually are supporting tax increases on Mainers when the rest of the country, and you'll even hear, as much as we're doing, we're still losing ground because we're not being aggressive enough to eliminate taxes. We're losing ground every day. If it was up to me, I would have gone after the income tax right now, totally. But I tried to introduce it slowly so I wouldn't give them all cardiac arrest upstairs. You know, 9 states currently have no income tax. 19 are trying to reduce or eliminate their income tax. We can't compete. When you have a national government, a federal government that's completely broken, we will not be able to compete here in Maine. We looked for prosperity, and I said, you don't have to go very far. Go to New Hampshire. Just go to New Hampshire and you see it. You see it. Just like driving around. They don't have an income tax. They don't have a sales tax. I wish their tolls were a little lower. But all kidding aside, we really need to focus in on what the future is going to be in Maine. We have to be good at something. And my point is, we start by eliminating the income tax. We bring in some programs that will enhance our kids and our grandkids to stay here in Maine, provide them good jobs, and attract people from other parts of the country. Let's attract people that are in states that are still behind us on taxation. I was just looking this morning at some of the worst states that we can go after. Unfortunately, most of them are in New England, so we don't have to go very far. We don't really have to go very far to get people that pay more taxes than we do. So we should start looking ahead. Many of you are very young. I don't know how many of you are ever going to make it to retirement here. If we don't do something, we need to get rid of the income tax. 4 years ago, I, along with the Republican majority, made a down payment, and we said it was a down payment at that time. If you recall, I said it was just the beginning. And I'm following up on what I said. Now we're getting the second installment on eliminating the income tax. Now it's a full-out war on eliminating the income tax till the day I leave this office. You're going to be hearing the elimination of income tax and the reduction of energy costs every single day, because that's what it's all about. We have an opportunity now to lower $300 million of income taxes next year, this next biennium. And I say actually next year because I look at the biennial as $300 million this year, and next year, while I don't like supplementals, I want to go to 4% next year. But we need to pass the budget, and let's move ahead, and let's see what's going to happen. Because I firmly believe that when Mainers catch on, and we eliminate the death tax, and we take the income tax off military pensions, and we start reducing the income tax on people who live in Maine, and see they don't have to go to Florida. They don't have to go to Texas, Arizona, Wyoming. They can stay right here in Maine. And I'd love them to go to Florida in January, February to visit. But come back in March when the snow starts to melt. And not stay until May or June. Not have to get new doctors and dentists and financial advisors in Florida. We have a few up here. We can probably keep them here. So to me, we get rid of the debt tax this year. We get rid of the income tax on military pensions. We start reducing the tax on all other pensions. And we lower the marginal rate to 5.75, and we're off to a good start. And the economy will start doing its job. And that's by seeing us move forward, people will start paying attention. They have everywhere else. This is not new. This is not something I've come up with. You can look around the country. It's there. And we need to take care of the poorest in our state. And we do that by tax credits, by helping them. You know, I looked at the plan and people start paying taxes at $9,000. I want to start paying taxes at $50,000. And they say my tax is a tax break for the rich. It isn't. If you evaluate who is off the tax roll since I've been here, it's some of the most vulnerable people in our state. So I really, really believe that we need to move forward, and we need to move forward quickly. I think that what I'm seeing coming down from upstairs is the same old that I've seen my entire life while I was in Maine. I remember getting out, I was still in college when the income tax came. And I said then that we were going to be doomed. Because at that time, we had a great opportunity not to get into this downward spiral, but we did. I would rather see the $60 million that the communities are all crying for. I get the biggest kick out of this. Revenue sharing to Falmouth is $457,000, but their income tax is $41,100,000, and their poor town manager's crying. Waterville, the town manager, $1 million revenue sharing, and he's given up $18 million that his constituents are paying. I care for those constituents throughout the state. And so I'd rather see that $60 million go directly to people in the form of a check from the state rather than to towns. I'd rather see it go in the fairness tax credit directly to the taxpayers. Because those are the people we should be helping. And I get a big kick out of it. A legislator upstairs that says he wants to help the town while he's ignoring the people who live in the town. And that's pretty significant. It might sound like it's pretty subtle, but it's pretty significant. When I want to return $1.2 billion to the taxpayers of the state of Maine, and I've never been, I thought they were going to build a statue of me when I said that. It's like fighting a war. And it's all about $60 million. 1.2 billion against 60 million. Folks, whether you agree with me or disagree, whether you agree with the plan, the fact of the matter is, I want to eliminate the income tax. I want to take $1.2 billion that comes into the state in the form of income tax and give it back to those who pay it. And restructure how we collect taxes. And go with a tax more on the consumption side. I believe it's the taxpayers of Maine, which is roughly 650,000 tax returns, would get $1.2 billion back. And then the tourism that we have, and it's been growing in recent years, that we ask them to pay a little bit more to enjoy the beauty of our state. And unlike Florida, we only have 3 good months. So we can put up with 3 months of visitors and then send them home in September. Now I'm going to turn it over. You're sick of hearing me, and I'm sick of talking. I want to turn it over to John Nass. Jonathan's been working on it before he deserted us and went across the DOT. He did work on this whole plan, and he's going to talk to you about the tax calculator that we're going to be putting up, so every Mainer can go in and see the benefits of our plan versus the opposition's plan. And I really believe that once you really study it and you get into it, I hate to say it again, and you've all heard me say this, it really is a no-brainer. Jonathan?
Thank you, Governor. At 3 o'clock today, we went live with the Governor's Tax Calculator. It's located here at this site, and all Mainers can access it. And it's designed to show Mainers how much of a tax cut they would get under Governor LePage's plan versus the current tax structure. It simply takes your Maine 1040 form, and if you itemize deductions, you also need your federal itemized deductions. It's very straightforward. We encourage you to all get out and try it out and see how much Mainers are going to get in a tax cut under Governor LePage's plan. It's very straightforward. I encourage you all to visit it, and we'd be happy to answer any questions once you've had an opportunity to check it out. And again, it's located at maine.gov/governor. I'm going to introduce Senator Cushing. He's a leader in the legislature and also a member of the American Legislative Exchange Council Board, and he's here to talk about their activities. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today. I am Andre Cushing, both a member of the Maine Senate, and I serve as the state chairman for the American Legislative Exchange. I'm delighted that today we were able to secure a gentleman who has tremendous amount of background in studying tax policies across the country. He co-authors the tradition of the Rich States, Poor States with Dr. Arthur Laffer, who served President Reagan, and Stephen Moore. And I would like to, without further ado, bring him up to talk about the importance of this particular day in most people's lives when it comes to their income taxes being assessed by the government. It's sort of a demarcation day, but more importantly, it's a time for us to reflect on just how large a role government has in our lives and what services we get and what value we get. So without further ado, Jonathan, thank you for joining us today, and thanks for coming to share your information.
Well, thank you, Senator Cushing. Thank you, Governor LePage, legislators here for joining us today. And I would say Happy Tax Day. I'm not sure that such a thing exists. But greetings from the land of make-believe, Washington, D.C., where I come from. I am the Vice President of the American Legislative Exchange Council's Center for State Fiscal Reform. And what we do is we follow trends across the 50 laboratories of democracy, as we like to say, and what really the states are doing on budget, tax, pension issues. And what we have to talk about today is a very, very important topic. ALEC has been around now 42 years. We're the nation's largest nonpartisan membership organization with Republicans and Democrats as members across all 50 states, looking at ways to make states more competitive. And that's what my book, Rich States, Poor States, with Arthur Laffer and Stephen Moore does. Is we measure economic competitiveness across 50 states, and taxes are a huge factor when it comes to economic competitiveness. So I'd like to commend Governor LePage for taking the bold leadership on tax reform. People often ask me what's going on in Washington, and my answer is always nothing positive when it comes to tax reform. In fact, the last time we saw fundamental tax reform in Washington, D.C., the year was 1986, and the president was Ronald Reagan. And it's been way too long since we've seen fundamental tax reform in Washington. Luckily, as Governor LePage mentioned, states are moving, and they're moving quickly on fundamental tax reform. And to the point that Maine can fall further behind just by standing still and doing nothing. Last year alone, 14 states significantly cut taxes. The year before that, 17 states cut taxes. Maine was not in those categories. And this year in our new Rich States, Poor States economic competitiveness ranking of the 50 states, we measure Maine at 42nd nationally. Now certainly that means there are storm clouds on the horizon if something doesn't change. You're going to continue to see people and businesses look to relocate to more favorable destinations. And let's face it, people are voting with their feet, as we like to say. They're voting with their wallets. They're voting from state to state. In fact, over the last 15 years, based on IRS data, official data, we know for a fact that more than 43 million Americans moved from one state to another. When you think about it, that's about 1/7 of the population of our nation moved from one state to another just over the last 15 years. And with them, on their tax returns, they reported over $2 trillion of income that has gone from one state to another. So it's an incredible benefit for states that get it right when it comes to economic competitiveness. It's an incredible risk for states that get it wrong when it comes to competitiveness. They're not competitive on tax and regulatory and labor policies. One of the key findings in Rich States, Poor States is just how much income taxes matter for economic growth. As the governor correctly identified, we think that is one of the most important factors for states. So how much do they tax capital? At what rate? As capital is much more mobile now than ever, we see the 9 states without personal income taxes far outperform their high tax counterparts. Just over the last 10 years, we know that the no income tax states, including your neighbors to the south and the live free or die state of New Hampshire, have outgrown the high tax states by 26% in terms of economic growth and 110% greater population growth in the no-income tax states. And that, of course, is the key, is to bring more taxpayers and bring more opportunity for Maine. And I'm proud to say that we've done some research. We'll be releasing right after this press conference, which you have in front of you, an embargoed report, which we ranked Rich States, Poor States, given the assumption that that Maine fully implemented Governor LePage's plan to get tax rates down, to eliminate the hated death tax, for instance. And we estimate that, holding all else equal across the 49 other states, that Maine would move from 42nd to 31st in economic outlook with the implementation of Governor LePage's plan. That, of course, I will remind you, is not the full elimination of the personal and corporate income taxes. That would move Maine light years ahead when it comes to further economic development. So with that being said, I think the governor's plan focuses on exactly the right things in terms of taxes to reduce. All taxes matter for economic competitiveness, but taxes on capital, taxes on personal income, taxes on business income, and death taxes, we find are some of the most damaging ways that states raise revenue. So you should be commended on taking a very difficult topic head on, because many states are unwilling to take these very tough steps on tax reform. And so with that, I'd like to turn it back over to the governor, and we'll take questions, I think, together.
Any questions?
Governor, you mentioned you wanted to take the income tax down to 4% next year. Could you explain what vehicle you use to do that?
Supplemental budget.
And is that regardless of what happens this year?
Well, no, it depends on what happens this year, of course. I think what you're going to see this year is we're going to be going after our constitutional amendment to eliminate the income tax. And if that fails this year, we'll go after it again next year. But I do look at the economic forecast and how the state is progressing, and I do think it's possible, with a few things happening, with some cooperation from the legislature, yeah, we could get down 4% next year.
Looking for a referendum this November?
Yeah, well, I'm looking for passing this session. I don't care if they put it in this November or next November, but I'd like it to be passed, and I'd like it to, makes no difference when, because I know how it's polling up with the voters. And so, this year or next year, if they send it to the voters, folks, I'm telling you, if they send it to the voters, it will be passed, and it will be passed big. I'm convinced of that.
If you're so convinced the constitutional amendment would pass so big, why not just put your tax plan out to the voters and have them decide?
Because it's a budget. I'd be more than happy. You want me to put it out now? We'll put it right now. And if the voters, let's have a special election, and if people want to get the impact on 5.75 this year, I'm all in. Good idea? Let's go on, let's work on it. I think it's a great idea. I don't know that we have a budget July 1st, but because I don't know if we can get an election that quick, but I'd be more than happy to do that. I absolutely believe that. I believe that Maine people understand, particularly those who have to pay the income tax, what's really happening. You know, I'll tell you what, I'd be more than happy to challenge that, put that out there in a heartbeat. I believe that Mainers understand, those hard-working Mainers who have to pay the income tax, see how much is taken away from them in their ability to move forward.
I asked the question because you didn't even have Republican support on the taxation committee to expand those sales tax items you need in order to fund your decrease in the income tax.
Okay, so what's that mean?
In terms of having the votes to pass this thing in the end.
Listen, I told you, if you're saying to me I can bypass the legislature and go to the people, I'm all in. I just told you that. I am all in. I would be more than happy if you could get the legislature right now to say, let's go to vote in 45 days, I'm all in.
Is part of your plan to raise the sales tax at the same time you would lower the income tax?
No. My plan right now is the sales tax that you see. I'm doing the sales tax on the front end.